a lack of trust. Lack of trust. We've been through so much pain that pain translates itself, right? I'm not going to love you too much because I'm afraid you're going to hurt me, so I'm going to hold it all back. And I'm waiting on you. So you're going to do the same thing, so nothing happens. Same thing is true in an economy. When there's a lack of trust, what does that mean? Well, that means the banks say, well, we got money to lend, but we don't trust that the customers are going to pay us back because the economy is a little fragile and we don't know what's going to happen. And so where does trust also play in the terms of customers? Customers say, well, I would go out and buy that new refrigerator, but I don't trust that the economy is going to be good, so I better hold on to my money in case I lose my job. Well, corporations say, well, we should hire more employees and maybe go make some investments, but we don't trust that the customers are going to be able to come and support us. So we're just going to hold on to our money. That was a problem President Obama had when he put $700 billion into the economy, and the banks and corporations just held on to the money. They didn't actually use that money because the trust was gone. They measured what they call consumer confidence. That's another way to talk about trust. Trust, when I trust you, I'm confident that if I love you, you're going to love me back. So I'm going to love you without reservation because I know that our love is going to be reflective. But I have to know that you're playing the same game as me. So black economics is the same way. I'm supporting you and I'm with you because we're all connected. We all understand the value of what we're doing, and we don't have to so much deal with this self-hatred thing that says that when you look at me, you're going to see something you hate because I'm black just like you and you already hate black people. Because we know, right? There's a lot of black white supremacists out here in this world. White supremacy is one of the first things that you're taught when you're a baby. White supremacy really doesn't work unless black people go along with it. So in order for us to play this economic game with each other, we must first practice loving ourselves and loving each other. That must occur before you do anything else. Because when you really love yourself and love each other, here's what happens. And George and I actually talked about this as well too. It's funny how many interesting things we hit on that apply to today. He mentioned a time where there was $1 billion investment. There was a black man, a lot of y'all don't know this, there was a black man who actually created the whole system for the entire internet. And he couldn't get black people to invest in that. And this company, he had to sell it for $3 or $4 million. It was eventually worth $21 billion when he sold it to white folks. And he mentioned that he really kind of had some skepticism. Well, he thought, well, if it's really all that great, then white folks will be talking about it, right? And many of us have that issue. Many of us grow up with a mentality that says, my goal is to grow up, go get an education, and so I can get a good job, so I can leave the hood, so that I can get accepted and get these artificial status symbols that were created by somebody else, go get accepted into these institutions that were not created by people that I care about, because I need all that for me to feel validated, for me to feel whole. And what has to occur for black economics to really work is that you have to feel whole before you get any of that. You have to be able to feel whole even if you're rejected from that. Because I would tell you this, if you are fighting for the empowerment of your people, people are not going to applaud you. They're not going to give you a permission slip. They're not going to be happy about it. You might get fired, and you're going to be rejected. So if you're waiting around for all the little chips and cookies in the corner office and all the awards and trophies and all these things that you get for fitting into these systems, then it's very difficult to do that and still truly fight for the liberation of black people. It's difficult to say the things that need to be said and still turn around to the person, the oppressor that you're fighting against, and say, by the way, can you give me a job? Because I don't have what I need to take care of myself. I am an economic child. We are economic children. We're not adults. We're not grown-ups. We can't take care of ourselves, and we don't take care of each other. Dr. Claude Anderson, the author of Powernomics, actually said it is downright criminal to send your child across town to go beg for a job from a white man. My proudest moment as a father was when my daughter was dealing with racism on her job, and she called me and she was telling me about it, and I thought about the fact that if this had been, say, 20 or 30 years ago, I would have had to help her figure out a way to survive in the midst of dysfunction. I would have said, well, baby, this is how they are, and just deal with it, baby. You're going to be all right, right? Next thing you know, she starts drinking and using drugs and doing all kinds of stuff just to cope. Happens to a lot of us. But my proudest moment as a father was when I was able to say, it's okay, sweetie, just come work for your father. I'm going to pay you more money, and I'm going to protect you. I was a bad person, and I didn't understand it. It doesn't make sense at first when you don't understand white supremacy, because you're like, wait a minute, I'm a good guy. I work hard. I get what I'm supposed to do. But yet I'm still being treated like I'm a common criminal. So the model basically is like this. It's easy to remember. Think of the word cost. A lot of people don't understand that freedom comes with a price. Back during slavery, there were some slaves who didn't want to be free because they realized that being free means that you have to find a way to feed yourself. You have to find a way to clothe yourself. You have to find a way to put shelter over your own head. So some people ain't ready to pay the cost for freedom. And if you look throughout the history of any country throughout this world, any free nation in this world will show you that people who were able to obtain freedom had to pay a cost for that freedom. Many times it was in blood. Fortunately, I don't think we've had to pay that cost in this country just yet, at least not in the last 50 years. So you're actually kind of lucky. They had to pay the cost to get the freedom, and then they had to have the capacity to defend the freedom. If you don't have the ability to pay the cost for your freedom or to defend your freedom, then some will say that you don't deserve your freedom. Not yet. Or you might deserve it, but you ain't gonna get it. Like they say, war is not about who's right, it's about who's left. All right, think about that for a second. So the word cost is an acronym. The C stands for contribute. Every person of color should contribute 2 to 7%, these are guidelines, 2 to 7% of your income to some black institution other than your church. Now, you can give money to the pastor, but you can also tithe to your people. In fact, it's what I call a black tax. It's something that says that if we want to build a nation, we have to be willing to allocate resources to build the institutions that we care about. Many black institutions get bought out because so many Negroes are so addicted to charity that we don't support these institutions, and then we wonder why they do silly things. I'm talking about the NAACP, for example. Donald Sterling, one of the biggest racists around, gets an NAACP award. How did he get that? Well, the organization needed money, and he comes in and writes a big check. So ultimately what happens is people write these checks to our organizations in order to basically be similar to crooks who buy the police station. Number 2, the O. What does the O stand for? It stands for ownership. Every person of color must own something at some point. Ownership matters more than anything else. Your child, when you have a newborn baby, you bring that baby into the world with a share of stock. At the Black Business School, we teach you how to buy your first share of stock in 10 minutes. It's not hard. There is no whites only sign on the stock market. You don't have to be rich to go in the stock market. You buy a share of stock the same way you buy a pair of shoes. And if you look at the history of the stock market, you will find a couple of things. Number 1, the majority of the reason for the gap between the rich people and middle class is because middle class people, they put most of their wealth in their home. Wealthy people, they buy a home, but then they buy a second home, a rental property, but they also buy stocks. And then poor people, unfortunately, either because they can't or because whatever the situation is, they don't own anything. So that's why you see the 3 lines. You see the wealthy, and then you see the middle class, and then you see the people here. Now, I'm not saying everybody can be wealthy. I'm not saying everybody should do what I tell you. These are all suggestions, but what I will say is that there are very simple mathematical models I can show you that would take literally 10 minutes that will show you that if you brought a child into the world and you just put $100 a month into the stock market and bought any stock, it doesn't matter what you pick, buy any stock, and you do that for 30 years, your child will have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank by the time they're 30 years old. And by the time they're 40, there's a very good chance they will be a cash money millionaire. $100 a month, $25 a week. Most of us spent $25 a week at McDonald's or Starbucks, going to the movies, going to see Kevin Hart, whatever it is. So it's not something, but something that most of us can do, period. So understand this. Now think about this. Now, you might think, okay, 30, 40 years, that's pretty far down the line, and I'm not really thinking that far ahead, and I'm just thinking about the present. But you got to think about this. Imagine how differently your life would have gone if you had $250,000 in the bank when you made all your decisions. You wouldn't have had to borrow money to go to school. You would be able to get a home and have the down payment. You would be able to start a business. If you need $5,000 or $10,000 to start a business, you'd have money for that. Do you know how many billion-dollar ideas in the black community die because they can't raise $5,000 to get started? Right. And in fact, think about this. I mean, you look at Facebook. Most of you were probably on Facebook in the last 2 or 3 days. Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook while he was in college. He was sitting around the computer. Everybody else going to the party getting turned up. He was at the computer building his dream. Now Facebook is worth $1/3 of $1 trillion. He makes more money in a month than LeBron James will make in his entire life. Let me say that again. He makes more money in a month than LeBron James will make in his entire life. All because he was good with computers. We got to dream the right dream. The athletic dream is nice. There's 1 or 2 LeBrons. God bless him for that. But if you really want to know where the money's at, the money's in technology. 80% of the world's wealth created in the last 2 years came from Silicon Valley. 80%. And so you got to think about this too. And I remember kind of doing this exercise in my head, and I thought, what if Mark Zuckerberg had been black? What if he had been a black kid who was at school, he was at Howard University, he was a computer genius, and he was sitting there thinking, one day I'm going to build this social media platform that I think is going to change the world. how would that have been received? And I'm not stereotyping here, but I'm thinking about my friends in college. And first of all, they would have said, well, why are you so serious? Why you study so hard? Go to the party. Everybody at the party tonight. Why don't you go to the party? So he would have probably been rejected. He wouldn't have had a girlfriend for a while. Till when he got the money, he would have had plenty of them, I'm sure. And then he would have went home to his family and said, I have this great idea. I built this beautiful platform. I think it's going to make a lot of money. And I'm wondering, would they say to him, oh, you should own that, maintain ownership, because one day that thing's going to be worth billions of dollars. Would they have said that to him, or would they have said something like, oh, Pookie's good with them computers. You can get a good job. I theorized that if Mark Zuckerberg had been black, there's a good chance that he would be sitting there working at IBM somewhere, making $200,000 a year, and really thinking that he made it, like really thinking that he actually did something, because he got the best job in the biggest office. So we got to understand what it means to build the right dream. Look, there are 157,680 hours that a child has from the time they're born until they turn 18. So in that time, it only takes about 200 hours to learn how to start a business. Learning to start a business should be as fundamental to a black child as anything else that they do. It's like learning how to grow your own food in case the grocery store shut down. A man should never starve to death because the grocery stores and the restaurants are closed down. It wouldn't make any sense. So make absolutely sure your children knows. And here's another message. This is a special message for black men who are listening. In order for a black man to be a king in America, you must learn how to build a castle. Because the white man is usually not going to invite you into his castle and make you the king. He will usually invite you into his castle and make you a servant, or he will put you there for his entertainment. Sing for me, boy. Rap for me, boy. Look at how high that nigga can jump. Like Farrakhan talked about when he talked about how the NFL Combine looks like a slave auction. He's right. He's right about that. Now, I didn't go through the whole cost model, so let me finish this up. And by the way, I want to make sure I'm respectful. How much time did you want? You want me to keep for a few more minutes? Okay, all right, got you. Okay, so the S, what does the S stand for? The S stands for save and invest. You save your money so your money can save you. You invest your money so your money can work for you. Saving will not make you rich, typically. Saving will give you security, though. What makes you rich is investing. So you can't usually get rich by just saving money, and you can't usually get rich by working for other people. If you want to build wealth, you start your own business and you invest your money, because money is not something that is used just to buy things. Money is capital. That's why every time I see an athlete go broke, when he done ran through $100 million doing stupid stuff, I feel so bad for him. I went to college with an athlete. Everybody knew this brother couldn't read, but they didn't care. They kept him on the court. The professors were part of this conspiracy because people tried to help him along the way, but they kept him away from his community. So he never learned how to read. He went to the NBA, went through $110 million. And when I see that kind of loss, I don't just see what he lost. I see all the wealth that was supposed to be created from that 100 million. If you are even remotely intelligent about what to do with money, it's not that hard to turn $100 million into $1 billion. If that family, if he raised children that were financially literate, I guarantee you that that $100 million would have been a multi-billion-dollar empire by the next generation. So not only did he lose his own money, he lost his children's money, his grandchildren's money, his great-grandchildren's money. He lost money in his family for the next 20 generations because he wanted to go get turned up at the club. So understand this, that when you throw away a seed, you're not throwing away just the seed. You're throwing away everything that seed could have become. Because we don't value the seeds. We don't understand what wealth building is, that it's an intergenerational game. It's an intergenerational game. If you look at most wealthy families, most great empires that are built, they're built over several generations, maybe over 100 years, maybe 200 years. And what you understand also when you look at time and how long time is, you see that we're just a speck in time. It's like time is a line and we are a dot on that line. A line is nothing more than a series of dots. We are a dot. Our time is that fast. So the most that we can do right now is make sure that we're planting seeds so our children can take it to the next level. In a way, it's almost like a relay race. A lot of people don't know you're not in a solo race because you think I'm gonna do it by myself right now and that's it, and all I'm thinking about is what I'm gonna get out of it. Then you're playing the wrong game. You might as well just not even be here. But if you understand that you're part of a lineage, then in part of a relay race, what you understand is that imagine somebody running in a relay race and they're 80 yards behind the competitor. Well, if they think it's a solo race, then you're not going to catch the person in 100 meters. They're too far ahead. So why even run? That's what a lot of people do. They don't save, they don't invest, they don't try to build anything because they say, well, I'm so far behind, I might as well just throw my money away, right? And if you don't run, then what happens? Then your team will never win. It doesn't matter. You can have Usain Bolt on the third leg, but you're not going to win because you didn't even come out of the blocks. But if you know you're in a relay race, what you realize is that your job is not to win the race by yourself. Your job is to run as fast as you can so that the next leg doesn't start in as bad of a position as you were. So your job is to plant seeds so that your kids don't have the same problems that you have. You're not supposed to start over every generation. Because what you never know, on the third or fourth leg, you may have the fastest sprinter in the world, and if you don't run, then he's not going to get the stick, and he won't have a chance to catch up. So make sure that your kids are left with something. And so the last part, I went over the C and O and the S. The T stands for target. When you spend your money, you have to target your spending. Your money is your power. And one of the things that we've been trained to do very well is to give all of our power away. Other communities don't do this. They understand the idea of very simple economic protectionism, which means that you take care of you and yours first before anybody else. And in fact, I love what the brother said about Black Friday. Yeah, absolutely. Buy black every Friday and buy black every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, every Thursday, every Sunday, every Saturday, every day of the week, if you can, as much as possible. And also be willing to pay a little bit more, because black businesses are not as developed and as evolved as some of these big white mega corporations. So the sister selling socks on the corner might not be able to match the price at Walmart. But here's why you should be willing to pay a little bit more. I call this the black tax, or tithe into your community. You should be willing to pay a little bit more, because here's the thing. If I pull $1 out of my wallet and I go spend the dollar and I go to Walmart or McDonald's, then that dollar pretty much disappears from my hands. It disappears, it's gone. But here's the thing about a dollar. A dollar doesn't disappear just because you spent it. Dollars just exchange hands. So they're going to take the money, go to their community, you'll never see it back, it's gone. That dollar was worth exactly $1. But let's say that we're all playing the same game. This is why it's important for us to all be on the same page on this. So I go to this brother's business and I say, here's my dollar. And I pay him a little bit more, maybe an extra 20, 30% more than it will cost me at Walmart, because I know what's going to, here's why I would do that. Because what he's going to do is he's going to take that money and he's going to go support her business. And then she's going to go support his business. And then he's going to support his business. And so that dollar has been used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So that dollar is not worth $1, that dollar is worth $5. So ultimately that extra 20% I invested has had a 400% return on investment. Because this money is going to support people I love. But if you don't love black people, it doesn't matter, because me not loving you means that I'm not going to see supporting you as an investment. I'm going to see it as a giveaway. I'm going to see it as a net loss. Think about your kids. Imagine if you, think about the way you spend money on your kids, right? Kids are not a good financial investment. They don't give the money back. They don't even say thank you half the time. They have an attitude, right? So why would you invest in your kids? Why would you care if your kids were doing better than you, because you don't get the benefit? But you do it because you love your children, and their success is your success. But if you don't love your kids, then you wouldn't invest in them. So if we don't love each other, we're not going to invest in each other. So that's why this conversation must start with the universal language of love. If you understand love, you understand economics. We have a big task in front of us. We're not going to live long enough to see what we're doing and what it will become after we're gone. We won't see any of that. But if we go out and we commit ourselves to a very basic idea, this is how we can change the game. This ain't about us catching up. This is about us dominating. This is about us becoming the new Jews plus one. And let me break this down for you. What we need is we need soldiers. To build a nation, you need soldiers. And what we need is we need a generation of economic soldiers. We need young children, 50 to 100,000 young children, who are trained on the basics of wealth building, financial literacy, cooperative economics, and entrepreneurship, where they have been raised in a household with a culture that values these things, that you should study entrepreneurship like it's a religion. If you study in the Bible, you study entrepreneurship too, because this is about survival. This ain't about money, it's about survival. 50 to 100,000 kids trained with the basics of those concepts, knowing the difference between being a producer and a consumer, knowing where to put your money in order to flip it and turn it into more money, knowing how to create a job if you can't get one. If you have 50,000 kids that are trained on those basics, that first 50,000 will employ the next 50 million. Everybody ain't got to be a soldier for you to build a strong army. You do, as Minister Farrakhan said, you need about 10, 20,000 good men and women. If you have that, then that will flip the game on its head. That's what we can do. That's what, if we do that now, commit ourselves to that right now, then what will happen is in 70 years, they're going to be talking like, when they're sitting in multi-billion-dollar industries and all these other things, they're going to look back and say 2016 is right where it started. So never underestimate the power of what you're doing in this room. The value is infinite. Thank you.